Do you remember when good old Tony Abbott brought back the British honours system, the knights and dames? And he awarded Prince Philip with a knightship, or knighthood rather. So Prince Philip became Sir Prince Philip. What a grand idea. Well, Kevin Rudd has said, hold my beer. And he's bestowed high Australian honours on a bloke called Joe Courtney. Now, the only problem is that Joe is a US congressman. He's the guy getting the Order of Australia. And why are we giving the Order of Australia to a US congressman? Well, we're working with him on the AUKUS Defence Pact. That's why. Rudd said in a statement, Joe has been strong and tireless advocate of Australia-US alliance, founding and co-chairing both the Bipartisan Friends of Australia caucus and the AUKUS working group. Joe, of course, is part of the great scam that is the US's $368 billion AUKUS stitch-up, which promises to drag Australia into a war with China, probably the Middle East. We're over there with the Houthis right now, fighting them. Any war will do, apparently, for the military defence establishment. They could have invented a new class of honours for Joe Courtney, say the Order of the Backslapping or the Order of the Defence Industry Gravy Train. But no, he gets an Order of Australia. And elsewhere, in the wonderful world of scams, there was a good yarn in the AFFR this week. That's the Australian Fossil Fuel Review about subsidies for billionaires. A very good yarn. Journalist Michael Reid got some FOIs back which showed, and don't smash your head against the wall please, that 42 self-managed superannuation funds, these are personal super funds, have more than $100 million in assets and receive more than $140 million a year in tax breaks, subsidies from working Australians. Yes, that's what younger workers without a home are subsidising, tax shelters for mollycoddle children of billionaires, because they really need that extra cash. The wealth of the nation's 100 biggest SMFs, self-managed super funds, hit $13.1 billion last year. What a tax shelter that is to pass on for your children's inheritances. But the creme de la creme was that the 10 largest super funds, personal super funds, had an average of $422 million each in assets, or 2,577 times above the national superannuation balance average of 164,000 and a bit. So meanwhile, while the BRICS conference was changing the world and being ignored in the media, Albo was off to CHOGM, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa. But CHOGM attendances are down this year, partly because everybody's trying to join the new club, the BRICS. So the PMs of India, South Africa, Sri Lanka skipped it, as did Canada's PM. Meanwhile, 13 new countries joined BRICS, who condemned genocide. Countries like Turkey, Indonesia, Malaysia and Thailand, a lot of the ASEAN countries, some of our other allies in Asia, while we chuffed off to the Red Sea to head up the Allied mission bombing the Houthis in Yemen. What a week. There was the election last night, of course. We're filming this just before that. So if you hadn't heard what it was fought on the youth crime epidemic, one of the big issues, which, if you hadn't heard, is actually right down over recent years. It's bobbed up a tiny bit, but over 10 years, youth crime, the incidence of youth crime is down markedly. And then Rebel Senator Lydia Thorpe. She's in trouble again after claiming she used a loophole during her parliamentary oath by swearing allegiance to Queen Elizabeth's heirs, not heirs. Easy to get that wrong. Following her confrontation with the King Charles III this week, our ruler. In the wake of the Victorian government's move to increase height restrictions in the southeast of Melbourne, there were reports of an uproar by the residents of Brighton, who threatened to glue their nannies to their yachts if poor people were introduced to their neighbourhood. We can thank the truth-telling news outlet, The Shovel, for that perspective, for that report. Satire is truer than the MSN. Peter Dutton, meanwhile, taking a break from his busy schedule of insulting ABC journalists, actually came out with a good policy. Don't faint. Part of the Libs' housing policy package, the rest of it's ordinary, dig into your super and here's a bit of money for infrastructure, which Labor was offering anyway. But it's to ban foreign property buyers in the residential market. Yes, really, it's true. And we commend Peter for this. Credit where credit's due. It's a true story. It is part of the Liberal housing policy. The only thing, the ban is only for 2 years. The idea being that if they can stop all this Chinese money and wealthy foreign money coming in for a couple of years, it might help house prices and availability because, of course, a lot of people, foreign landlords, just put nobody in there. They probably haven't got the water even connected. We've tried to go through to Sydney Water on this one, and Melbourne Water, but of course had a no comment. So the Labor Party, like the Libs, have steadfastly ignored in both their policies when we rack them up, although we give credit to Dutton for the foreign buyers thing. They've ignored reform to CGT discounts, negative gearing, AML CTF and SMFS reform, as well as the Airbnb tax lurks. So all those obvious ones, they've ignored that, but they're going to throw a few billion apiece at infrastructure and the HAF from Labor, which is better than the Liberal policy. Not good enough, though, for this housing crisis, which is going to endure for quite some time. But to give the media credit, the Albo's house story, Albo buys a house, it was still running in its second week. But it is hard when we have to come down and decide. It's an agonising decision. Who gets this prestigious gong for Scam of the Week? It's hard to go past Lydia Thorpe for this inaugural prize for Lydia. It's far more newsworthy, far more worthy, in fact, than an Order of Australian for US congressmen, because US politicians cannot get Scam of the Week. It is for Australians only. Just a reminder, though, that Bob Katter claims that he has never sworn allegiance to kings and queens. But then again, Bob is neither an Indigenous, Bob is not an Indigenous woman. Now, just to finish on a note of condolences for John Menadue and his family. John Menadue is the great former political advisor. He was chairman of Qantas at one stage, or CEO of Qantas rather, Australia's ambassador to Japan and advisor to Gough Whitlam and Malcolm Fraser. He's had a lot of arrows in his quiver, John, over the years, and he runs the Pearls and Irritations website. We worked with John for 2 years producing Pearls and Irritations, and we did a lot with Susie Menadue, his wife, during that time. Well, Susie died this week, so big condolences to the Menadue family. She was a woman of great warmth and wisdom. In fact, Lobbyland, Lobbyland was an off-the-cuff idea from Susie one day. She just called Canberra Lobbyland, and we ran with it. Please like, share, or comment in the section below, and shoot us a few bucks if you can on Patreon to keep it going. Thank you.